What's up, Dragon Brood? Today we are going to update a list that's actually been pretty popular from the last season, but it kind of struggled a little bit and didn't quite get into that top tier. Don't know if it will with this, but there are a few cards that got out of the set of Strixhaven, and we're talking about Orzhov Clerics. And this deck actually has enough firepower to really be competitive and hold its own, but some of the new pieces actually put it into a pretty good position to really kind of take that next step from where it was before. And we kind of suspected that clerics, being the type of class or group or tribe, if you will, that actually are always getting cards every set, it was going to get a few pieces here or there that actually helped it fill in some of the missing pieces. So hopefully this works out pretty well. But that's enough talking about it. Let's go take a look at the deck list. Okay, so getting right into this, starting at the top, we are looking at 4 Selfless Savior. And that's not really a surprise. Like, this card is just really good in keeping your other creatures alive, and it's cheap to cast, so you really want this in here. Followed by Speaker of the Heaven. This is one of the cards that, like, it doesn't necessarily get to getting you those 4/4s that often, but a lot of times just the threat of it actually ends up having it draw the damage, draw the removal, when you're trying to set up some of your better plays. Then we have Cleric of Lifespawn. This is a card that, for some reason, when I've seen people building Cleric decks of the last season or two, wanting to cut this particular card. And the reality is, like, I've won many games just because I've gotten 2 Cleric of Lifespawns into play, and that was enough, to really kind of close the clock there. And, you're getting progressively larger creatures. And I'm not really sure why people pull away from this, but I really like this card a lot. Also, the fact that if you are able to gain life on your opponent's turn and then gain life on your turn, like, you are getting a counter each time because it's once per turn that you actually get that counter. So I don't know, it's a really strong card. I'm not really sure why people don't like it, but I'm definitely a big fan of it. Then we have Luminarch Aspirant. If you play aggro white decks, you've probably seen enough of this so far. But this is the first new card out of the set we're adding to the list, and that is Silverquill Silencer. And I want to say this about the card. Silverquill Silencer is nice because it's a 3/2 for 2, so it can just be a beatdown creature all on its own. But its ability is actually really good. When it comes into play, you get to choose a non-land card. And if your opponent plays that card, they lose 3 life and you get to draw a card. So even if your opponent has the sweeper you're afraid of, let's say it's I don't know, Shatter the Sky, right? You call Shatter the Sky, your opponent plays it, they take 3 anyway, and you get to draw a card. So this isn't gonna, like, be a game breaker, but this can do enough where if you've had your opponent at, say, 9 life, 6 life, like, they take 3, okay, cool, and you get a card, that makes it a lot easier for you to finish things off over the next couple turns. The other thing is these work great in multiples, so if you get 2 or 3 of them, now your opponent doesn't even wanna cast the card that you've named because they're afraid of it. You're going to take extra damage. Or they're going to take extra damage. So this actually becomes pretty interesting. Um, what how powerful is this going to be? I don't know, but I really like it in this list. I really, really do. It's a fun card. It's an interesting card. I'll be interested to see how much this helps lift this deck up. Then Elite Spellbinder. And it's arguable this should probably be a 4 of card here. It's kind of tough because we had a lot of 3s, so I was trying to decide what I wanted to cut from this list. So I had to squeeze some room here or there. But this is a 3/1 for 3, flying. When it comes into play, you choose a card from the opponent's hand. You set it in exile, and they have to pay 2 to cast it, or 2 extra to cast it. And this is good too because, again, if you're worried about some cards that could be sweepers, that could kill your biggest creature, you can really just twist the screws on your opponent a little bit. And between these 2 cards, you're kind of taxing your opponent to be able to come after you or play the things you want. And all you're trying to do with this deck many times is just buy 1 more turn, 2 more turns, right? Because that lets you get in an attack for 4, attack for 6. And that's all you're really hoping for. You don't need anything big to happen. If you can end up just getting your opponent to pause a turn or 2 to open up that door for you just a little bit, that's what these 2 cards are going to be able to do for you. Righteous Valkyrie, this is good for just gaining life. It's a flyer. Like, it fills a couple different gaps, so it's pretty nice. 1 Tabarex, because this is a way to gain some life and really get that going. 2 Vetoes. This is another card that I think sometimes is questionable in these lists, and I've built some with veto and some without. But this time I decided to include it. We still have enough things gaining life, like not a ton, but also you can just give all your stuff lifelink. And since we have a couple of creatures now, they're going to be like 3 power or bigger. I think we can make a little more use out of this card, and I don't mind it being on the list. Could still be a little underpowered, but I'm okay taking that chance, really. Then we have one Glorious Protector. This is kind of another catch-all to protect your cards. If your opponent has a sweeper or wants to use some spot removal, you can go ahead and use Glorious Protector, toss it out there, save either an individual creature or a whole team of creatures. Kind of up to you what you want to do with it. And then 2 copies of Aura, Skyclave Hierophant. And I don't mind including Aura here because it is a 3/3 for 4. It does have lifelink, works with a couple of your cards because it has a lifelink. But additionally, it's just another way to make it hard on your opponent, right? Especially now that you're able to include stuff like Elite Spellbinder and stuff like that, where they cost 3. Well, you can get back a Clerical Lifespine, you can get back Speaker of the Heaven, you can get back Luminarch Aspirant. All of those cards are problematic for your opponent. So I like being able to have this type of card, or even after a sweeper, right? If it doesn't exile your cards, all these go to the graveyard at the same time, all those triggers happen. A lot of times you're going to be able to get 2 or 3 creatures back anyway and keep the pressure up. So I really do like playing that here. We're playing Dire Tactics, mostly because we do have enough humans that we're probably not going to be upset at, or we're not going to end up losing the life. But if we don't have humans in play for some reason, we also have enough things with lifelink that we're not really concerned about the life loss from the Dire Tactics. And the thing I will say about Dire Tactics you have to remember is that it does actually exile the creature, which is a very important point. And then we have 2 Sajiri Shelter. Goodness, excuse me. And this is just another way to protect your creatures, giving something protection from a color. Nothing real fancy here. And it does double up as a land, as it's one of the DFCs that have land on the backside. Then we have 4 bright climb pathways, 8 planes, 4 of the new Shine Shadow Snarl, 6 swamps. And we're not too worried about the Snarl just because we do have 14 basics. So, I mean, if we just don't have one in hand, that'll just be bad luck whenever that happens. But this is one way you're actually going to be able to build clerics moving forward. Now, there is one thing I want to point out about the Silverquill Silencer, is the way it's worded. You can't choose, like if you have 3 different ones in play, and they each choose a different card, then your opponent's not going to lose 9 life for each of those cards they cast. It will just trigger the one that you chose the card for. So if you want your opponent to take more damage because you're only afraid of, I don't know, Doomscar, then you need multiples of them to name Doomscar, or else they won't each trigger whenever your opponent casts the card. Just something to keep in mind there. But I do like the fact that this deck now has multiple ways to potentially draw cards in something like the Silencer. We have more ways to slow your opponent down when you're talking about the Elite Spellbinder. And then we still have a Taborax, we still have Aura, we still have Veto to try to get a sneaky win here or there. So I like what the deck's doing, and I appreciate having the ability to play an aggro deck that has different ways of finishing the game that you really don't get sometimes with some of the other builds. So hopefully this kind of helps elevate clerics a little bit. Maybe I won't say to that next level, but makes them one step more competitive. I think there's still going to be clerics that come out in the D&D set in 3-4 months, but I think this gives us a nice setup to look toward that and see what we get for the finishing touches. But as always, if you want this deck list, it will be in the description down below. Obviously, you won't be able to load this into Arena until the set goes live, but I would say, why don't you like this video, then go ahead and hit the subscribe button and hit that notification bell, and then that way you'll have this bookmarked. You can come back, and then when the set goes live, if you want to play this, you can just hop over, click the link, go download the deck list, and it'd be good. You help me out, you let me know you appreciate me doing these early deck lists, and you'll be notified every time I have a video up, because I'm going to be doing these every day until Strixhaven releases. Well, that's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.